expected The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds to submerge me in comfortable familiarity. But what I didn't expect is that it would be my favourite Zelda since Wind Waker, or that it would present me with some of the most inventive, cerebral puzzles in the series' history. Between Worlds is a powerfully nostalgic experience for anybody with memories of A Link to the Past, but it's also an exceptional game in its own right. It doesn't just pay homage to Zelda's past glories, it reinvigorates its spark. This Hyrule is a childhood dreamscape brought to life, colourful, imaginative and stuffed with secrets, and it's barely changed since 1992. But Between Worlds combines the emotionally potent familiarity of A Link to the Past's Hyrule with some of the most significant innovations that the Zelda series has seen in years. The bombs, boomerangs, bows and more that were previously found in dungeons are now available to rent almost from the beginning, courtesy of this enthusiastic chap. It's a small change that has huge repercussions, freeing you from a set path and imbuing Link Between Worlds with a sense of adventure and discovery that's been lacking in many recent Zelda games. A Link to the Past's top-down 2D style translates well into 3D, but it's a straight visual upgrade rather than a statement, and the nostalgic charm wears off surprisingly fast. That said, A Link Between Worlds boasts masterful use of 3D. Link himself is also caught between 2D and 3D. A button press transforms him into a painting on almost any wall. It adds a spatial element to puzzling, as you have to navigate Hyrule and its dungeons in both dimensions. Between Worlds offsets these innovations with a tendency to stick to very safe, familiar territory in other areas. Link himself is back to being a blank cipher rather than a proper character, and this Hyrule, rewarding as it is to explore, lacks the personality of other Zelda worlds. The story, meanwhile, could be uncharitably described as twee, though it's partially redeemed by a rousing ending. It's almost as if the designers felt the need to appeal to our sense of Zelda tradition in order to give them license to experiment with it. Hyrule and its dark twin Lorule are designed to reward your curiosity. The world is like a gigantic puzzle box with secret levers and compartments within compartments. Small rewards are scattered everywhere, teasing you to figure out how to claim them. The dungeons, meanwhile, might lie either at the end of a convoluted and treacherous path or hidden in plain sight. You may not always have the item that you need to hand when you get to wherever it is that you're going, but you can run back to fetch it instead of waiting for it to unlock. Cutely implemented fast travel mitigates the need for trekking across the map. In this world, though, even backtracking can be a pleasure. Hyrule is still subtly gated to an extent, but I never felt restricted in my self-directed exploration, and for the first time in years I wasn't bothered by the over-familiarity that's begun to encroach upon my enjoyment of this wonderful series. Any long-term Zelda fan can relate to the slightly deflated feeling of opening a chest only to find a long-expected boomerang or hookshot. With those toys already in your hands, A Link Between Worlds is free to surprise you in other ways, like the puzzle design. Between Worlds is the best puzzle game that Nintendo has ever released. Each dungeon is a self-contained conundrum with its own rules and dangers. Some are more familiar than others, but even those feel fresh. For all A Link Between Worlds' aesthetic familiarity, the puzzle design is as inventive and novel here as it has ever been. As someone who's grown up with Zelda, I greatly appreciate that it treats you like an intelligent person with a functioning brain and a decent attention span, unafraid to let you get stuck. Instead of Fi or Navi, it uses the language of its design to tell you things. Subtle visual cues guide your eyes towards the separate elements of complex puzzles, and when your brain arranges them into place you can almost hear the satisfying click. Item renting also introduces real consequences for death. Should Link fall in battle, your rented items are whisked away back to the shop, leaving you potentially in the middle of a dungeon without something you really need. Often though, there will be a way to get through it without using items at all, you just have to think more creatively. For me, the element of danger heightened the thrill of exploration. What could have been an easy sequel that traded on past glories is instead a compelling argument for digging up the foundations of Zelda and seeing what happens. A Link Between Worlds is not a total revolution, but it may very well be the start of one. I haven't been so challenged by a Zelda since Ocarina of Time, and rarely have I been so consistently surprised by one. Between Worlds recaptures the spirit of adventure that gave the early Zelda games their potency, and lays out a vision for those still to come. It invites them, and us, the long-term fans, to let go of conventions that may have been comforting, but were ultimately holding us back. It's at once intensely nostalgic and powerfully novel, unpatronising and cerebral. As a Zelda fan, I couldn't wish for much more. For everything else on Zelda: A Link Between Worlds, stay with us on IGN.